No one's ever really gone.
Oh no, Han was stabbed in the chest.
Oh my god. Are you sure it was like...
Dude, he was definitely stabbed. Kylo ignited that thing through his chest and then threw him off of the ledge, like hundreds of feet.
Yeah, no, he's gone. He's definitely gone. He's dead for sure.
What's going on?
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the review you've been looking for. Welcome back to Project Potter. My name is Kyle, your host, guys. This is our Star Wars in review. We're here to review The Last Jedi, guys. If you haven't seen the series before, what I do is go through my favorite thoughts on the movie, favorite character, which is the Force is strong with this one, a least favorite character, which is there was no try, a score out of 10, guys, and the rankings, of course. So appreciate you guys stopping by. Go check out the other content on the channel. If you do like this content, of course, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and let's get some green milk, guys, and here we go. Okay, guys, so a lot of things I like about this movie. Obviously, visually, this movie stands out. It's ironic that this is the most divided movie probably in Star Wars because people either love this movie or they hate it, and it's like this movie is all about balance, and they say, you know, darkness rises, light meets it, and it's like I feel like there's not enough balance here where people just either think this is the worst movie ever or the best movie ever. I fall kind of somewhere in the middle there, guys, so we'll get into that, but visually, guys, there are no complaints about this movie. Rian Johnson had a vision. I mean, the red sand behind me here, guys, that whole scene is incredible. It looks great. There's so many visually stunning shots, even just the stuff between Kylo and Rey, where they're just like bridge mind together. We get the throne room scene, guys. The throne room scene, I know that people have broken it down on YouTube and they say, oh, it's actually really poorly choreographed. You know what, guys? Who cares about all that? Honestly, I don't care about any of that. This is Star Wars, okay? We're here. We're talking about the Force. We're talking about using powers in space. Maybe when some characters should have died in space and then they Mary Poppins back in there. We're gonna let that go, okay? But I will talk about that. Who cares if like the choreography isn't the best, dude? It's Star Wars, dude. They're using laser swords, like Luke says. So it's like the throne room scene is amazing, and like just that whole twist there. I remember seeing in the theater for the first time, guys, the moment where Rey is like, I can turn Ben, and she's telling him like, I know there's conflict in you, and it's like it's a little too similar to Empire for me, where Luke kept telling Vader, like, I know there's conflict in you, Father. Snoke is really, really good in this one. He, I think, delivers a great performance. Obviously, it's like CGI, and Andy Serkis does a great job. I think he has a perfect, like, growly voice for this, and he's really intimidating, and he's so powerful that, like, Kylo goes to go after him, and he just, like, zaps him with the Force lightning, and it's just really awesome. But that whole aesthetic of the red throne room is so cool when he's got the red guards. That is so awesome. The moment where Kylo turns the lightsaber and then Snoke says, I see you turning the lightsaber now to kill your true enemy. And then it ignites the saber, and he's like, his look of shock. And then for him to pull it out, and then Rey puts her hand up, dude, and she like grabs it and then looks at him like, oh, are we going to do this right now? Amazing, dude. Like one of my favorite scenes in Star Wars history. It's so good. It's so hype. And it's just like, and then we get that amazing scene. So I do have some qualms with the story here, where there are some things that don't quite work for me as well. So this movie is interesting for me because the first time I saw this movie, I hated it. I did not like this movie at all. I saw it a second time and I liked it more. I saw it a third time, and then I think I was like, I love this movie. And now this is probably my fourth, fifth, sixth time watching, whatever it is, guys. And like I said, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, but I definitely like this movie more than I dislike it. And I will say the story, though, is kind of all about like the Resistance being trapped on the ship, and like 99% of the Resistance can't do anything. Obviously, they send Finn and Rose to Canto Bight or something. I don't know. That planet down there with all the rich people that sell weapons to the First Order. That didn't hit for me as much. I really liked that there's like this idea that these people are all rich because they're selling weapons to the First Order, and then Finn is like, hey, these are the bad guys. And then it's Benicio del Toro's character. He's like, oh, let's see who owns this ship. And he's like, bad guy, bad guy, bad guy. Oh, and sold some to the good guys too, because there's an X-Wing. So it just shows that there's a gray area, right? And that's what this movie is all about, where Luke tells Rey, like, you know, the Force isn't like exclusive to the Jedi. Luke is trying to tell her, like, it's not black or white, man. It's like there's a whole lot of gray area. That's again what kind of is the theme of this movie, where the line between a bad guy and a good guy is very thin. And yes, the First Order has some different plans, but really it's like, and it's just a war, really, and that's what war is. It's just a battle of power. And all of Rey's training with Luke, I think, is great. How Luke is like, I don't want to train you, and he's like, the Jedi need to die, and Luke keeps saying like, this needs to be the end of the Jedi, and he's basically like, deeds were all failures. It's like, he says they're romanticized now, but he's like, honestly, the Jedi and the Jedi Council kind of sucked, and it's like we've seen that in the prequels, and it's like it's a really cool point, and I love that they explore that. And it's not like the Jedi are not like the ultimate heroes. It's like the Jedi made mistakes too, just like the Empire and just like the Sith and just like the First Order. And so again, the philosophies might be slightly different, and Kylo Ren and Snoke are a little more power hungry, but it's really not that different. Obviously, guys, we get Kylo Ren also extending his arm to Rey, the scene where they are like, after they take out the throne room, and then there's like the lightsaber in the middle, and they're both using the Force and fighting each other, or like trying to pull it from each other, and then it explodes. It's awesome because that's the same time that Admiral Hodo, I think it is, Hododoa, in hyperspace into the ships, sacrifices herself. It's an incredible moment. It goes quiet. Absolutely beautiful moment, dude. At the same time that's happening, Luke goes down, and we get Luke who projects himself as younger Luke, and he's got the black Jedi robes. I'm like, oh, let's go, dude. He's got the blue saber, which is great, and then which is his original saber, of course. It wasn't the green saber, which I do love the green saber too. But he goes over there, and Kylo Ren shows up, and he has the great Moore scene where he's yelling, and they fire all the lasers, and Luke is still standing there. We know why, because he's a projection, but it's just like Kylo is so obsessed with taking down Luke. And then we have this story where it's like Rey's trying to figure out, like, she's trying to tap into Ben, and she's trying to save Ben. And then she thinks that Kylo Ren is a monster. And then she starts to kind of unpeel the layers. And then she's like, oh, wait, maybe Luke created Kylo Ren because Luke was like standing over Ben's bed like a weirdo, and he says he saw the dark side, and he like glimpsed into his future. And it was kind of like when Yoda told him that there was a lot of like hate in his future, and that's why they like didn't give Anakin the role of master, because they said, there's too much fear and too much hate leads to the dark side. Luke saw the same thing in Ben, and he's like, oh, and he like has a moment where he said like, I thought I could like take it down or something. I don't know what his plan was, but Ben basically wakes up and he's like, bro, are you trying to kill me right now? And so he defends himself, and then he loses trust in Luke. Rey keeps telling him the whole movie, like, look, you didn't fail Ben failed you, or Kylo failed you. And it's like, it's just a really interesting dynamic. And just the fact that Luke and Kylo go up at the end, and that it's so great that Luke like uses the time to buy time for the Resistance to escape out the back, for Rey to show up, for her to move the rocks, as she says, and then they get out, and like that's how they begin the rebellion. Obviously, guys, all the stuff on the Salt Planet is really awesome. I love how they get in those old speeders where they're like falling apart. This movie is all about hope, and it's all about like how the Resistance has the smallest odds, and they're up against the worst odds, but they keep going no matter what, because that's what the Resistance is all about. And even when Leia admits at the end, like, oh, the spark is out, that's when Luke shows up, and it's like, the spark is never out, dude. There's a great line, I think, that Holdo tells Flyboy Poe, where she's like, Leia always tells me, like, if you only believe in the sun when you can see it, you'd never get through the night. And it's true. It's like hope is the same thing. You have to always have hope. And that's what, again, this movie is all about. So I think that was really interesting, guys. I'm sure there's a lot I am forgetting about that I didn't touch on. But yeah, the Canto Bight stuff I didn't really like. I thought that was not as bad as I thought the first time, but it did feel kind of like, all right, they're looking for the Codemaster. It's weird that they find like the Codemaster that Maz tells them about. Like they're like, oh, the Codemaster, and it's like this guy, and he's like looks really suave. And then that was like a decoy, because they actually didn't need the Codemaster. Maz was like, there's only one person that can do that. And then they just find a random dude in Benicio del Toro, but then he gets caught, and then he's like just a business, like he'll do anything to get a buck. So he's like, we got caught, I made a deal. And it's like he's just in it for the money. And he says something like, they blow you up today, you blow them up tomorrow, it's just business. And I really, really love that aspect of it, because he's basically like, war is war, dude. Like, it doesn't matter what side you're on. He's like, I'm in it to make a buck too. But I thought it was weird that he could like get through when Maz told us that they have to get the master code breaker. So did really like Rose and Finn's dynamic. Like a lot of people, guys, I just kind of had to take a minute, rewatch, and I really liked her performance there. Guys, I almost forgot, the opening scene is so good with the bombing scene. It is weird though, because Poe comes in, and I really love how Poe at the end, guys, learns from Leia's orders, because they're taking out the dreadnought, and the dreadnought is sick, dude. But Poe's going in there, and he is shooting down all the cannons or whatever, and there's one left, and they take out his weapons, and BB-8 goes down there, and BB-8's like trying to hold a leak, and BB-8 throws that flex seal on there, dude, and then he's like, oh, thanks, BB-8, and they take out the final cannon, and then the bombers come in. But then this, I don't know if they thought the plan was going to go better, but the bombers come in and just get absolutely wrecked within like seconds, dude. Like the fighters are like, okay, protect the bombers. I was like, sounds like a great plan. And then the bombers just get absolutely destroyed within 2 seconds. Love the visuals, dude. But it's like there's one bomber left. They're like, all fire on that bomber. And then the bomber comes through. I left out like all the bombs are like lined up here. And then there's like a little like ladder that goes up. And it's Rose's sister, of course, that's there. And I guess there's like the pilot, and then there's the person who like arms the bombs and drops them. And the guy that arms and drops them like died or got knocked out. And so Rose's sister has to like throw an autopilot, go over there, and they're like, come on, you got to drop it now. And they're like getting ready to fire on Poe. And it's just really, really good the way everything's going at the same time, where it like cuts out and Poe's screaming, and she knows that she falls down, and then she kicks it, and there's the little detonator at top, and then she like kicks it, and she has to get it, grabs it at the end, hits it, and then like that scene, guys, where she drops the bombs, it blows up the dreadnought, and then it's like it blows up her, like they shoot her bomber, so they take her bomber down, and she knows she's gonna die, but she like holds on to the moon. Is really awesome, and it's a pretty emotional scene. And I love how they get it done, and everyone's like, oh, we took out a dreadnought, but then Leia is like, a lot of dead heroes out there, and Poe learns that, you know, the mission, it costs too much, you know, and it's like, yeah, they took down the dreadnought, but they lost a whole bunch of fighters. Leia looks at her board, and it's like 8 of 12 or whatever that she's got are dead, and she's like, dude, that those are too many losses. And so when they go to the salt planet at the end, Finn is like gunning for the barrel, and he's like, I don't care, we can't let them win. Poe tells him like, that's an order, you got to come out. Poe has learned from his previous mission where he's like, dude, there's too many losses. He's like, we got to cut our losses. And so it's really nice to see his character grow like that. But then Rose, I didn't like that scene where Rose saves him. She has a line where she's like, this is how we're going to win. We're going to save the things we love, not fight the things we hate. And I was like, okay, that's a good line. But like, it's like this big moment where Finn is going to sacrifice himself, and it's going to be this big dramatic moment. And then for Rose to come in and like intentionally crash is weird, because neither of them died, obviously. And it's like, he probably would have blown up or something. It was very unsafe. And it was just a weird move, because then it was like they had to stop this cannon, but then also the cannon just went off, and then obviously Luke shows up and saves them. But it's like, basically, this is the only hope, dude, and she kind of ruined it. And it's like, what if Luke didn't show up and they just went in there and just killed everyone? Like, I don't know, guys. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but I'm sure I'm forgetting a whole bunch of things. Obviously, when Rey goes down, guys, sorry, a couple of things I don't want to forget. When she first, this movie has some good humor, and some of it is really cheesy, and some of it I think is really good. But obviously, it's like trying to be on the lighter side for the comedic relief, because there's some really dark things it deals with. When Rey is training with Luke, and then she's like, "Oh, I feel the Force," and he's like, "Oh, reach out," and then he's like, "Oh my God," and then he has a little like leaf, and he tickles her, and she's like, "I feel it," and he's like, he like smacks her, and she's like, "Oh," and she's like, "Try again." Oh, she's like, "Oh, you mean reach out like spiritually?" And he's like, "Yes, dude." He goes right to the dark, you know, the rock cracks and stuff, and Luke's like, "Rey," and he's like, "You went right for the dark, dude." He's like, "It gave you something that you needed," and he's like, "I get it, dude," because, you know, remember on Dagobah, guys, when there was like the dark cave and Vader came out, and it's like Luke knows what's going on, and he's like, "Dude, you can't go right to the dark." So that's all really cool. And then I mentioned earlier, guys, the bridge stuff between Rey and Ben is so cool, where it's like we're introducing this mechanic or this like element we've never seen in Star Wars, where it's like these two can be in completely separate places, and we see them literally touch hands at the end there, and it's like she's out in the rain, and then Kylo's in his base, but then like his hand is wet, and it's like there's elements of different places going through. The Force connection is so strong that's going through. I thought it was weird that Snoke said he forged their minds together, although I did like that because it showed you how powerful Snoke is. And then there's some stuff that goes into Snoke in the last movie, guys. But yeah, I think again, I'm sure there are things I'm forgetting, and I'm probably sound like a broken record now, guys. But those are kind of my initial thoughts on the movie. Oh, guys, and how can I forget about the tree scene where we get Ghost Yoda? Rey talks about how Luke is closed off to the Force, and then he slowly comes back in there when Daisy like threatens him with the lightsaber. She's like, "Test me, dude," and he has to use the Force to like break his fall. That's when he kind of opens himself back up, and he's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't close the Force off. But the scene where he sees Ghost Yoda, dude, where he's going to go burn the Jedi Temple and the Jedi text, it's really interesting because he has like his doubts about it, even though he brings the torch there. And Yoda's like, bro, let me just do it. And he summons the lightning strike down and sets it afire. And he's like, you got to let this go. And it's just a really, really great scene. And to see Luke and Yoda together was awesome. So I don't want to forget that, guys. But now I promise we are done with thoughts. Okay, guys, the Force is strong with this one. It's Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, man. His last live-action performance as Luke Skywalker, I think he's just absolutely amazing, dude. He's so, so good. We know how much Mark Hamill cares about Luke Skywalker if you guys see like any of his social media posts. Mark is a fantastic human being. He's always reaching out when fans tag him. He's always like, saying how appreciative he is for Star Wars. He's like the opposite of Harrison Ford, dude, for Han Solo, where Harrison Ford doesn't give a shit about being Han, and it's really sad, but Mark Hamill absolutely knows how much the character means and how much it means to him and the fans. And I love that he just plays this well. And I know a lot of people don't like his performance as Luke here. And like the movie kicks off where it literally picks up where Force Awakens ends and he flicks his lightsaber. But guys, the older I get, the more I relate to Luke, where I feel like, caring about less things, or he's like, it's all the same, everything's gray now. And I'm like, I feel that, Luke. He's just like, oh, what's the point? He's like, we took on the Empire, dude, and then the First Order just came up, and now they're even more powerful. And it's like, he went through all that stuff, and it's like, there's this idea of hope, but then the First Order just takes over. And I know they shouldn't lose the spark or anything, but at the beginning of this movie, he's like, dude, you know what? I give up. I failed my teachings. Kylo Ren was training Kylo Ren. He turned to the dark side. And he's like, you know what, dude, I'm just going to go to an island. I'm going to like sign up for Netflix, and I'm not going to do anything. And I'm just going to die, leave my own days out. I'm going to fish on a big stick there. I'm going to get this milk. Guys, can we talk about the milk scene? God, one of the truly like horrendous scenes in this movie where it's just like, I don't know what they were thinking, but there's like a cow creature with like 4 udders, and Luke squeezes it and it makes like a weird sound, and then it's like the green milk or the blue milk, and he just like looks at Rey. He's like, don't judge me. He doesn't say anything, but he gives that look, and even Rey is like, what is going on here? I don't know how that made into the movie, but yeah. And then obviously, guys, sorry, this isn't the thoughts, but this is the Project Potter review, so this is what I do. The whole Phasma thing I think was cool. Phasma looked amazing as always, but we didn't really get too much of her. But I love how Finn and Rose are like literally about to be executed when Holdo does the hyperspace jump, and so that like throws everything on fire and it saves them. Finn fights Phasma, and it's really cool because they have a pretty cool fight, and he's like, come on, he's screaming, and it's really cool. But then he gets knocked down, and she's like, you'll always be scum. And then he comes up, and it's weird because he comes up and he says, hey, and then hits her, and I'm like, hey is the line you came up with, dude. You couldn't have put anything else. But then she's about to fall into the fiery pit to her death, and he says, rebel scum. And I was like, oh, dude, what a moment for Finn. Like, because he's been trying to be a rebel when he had to pretend he was a rebel for most of the movie in Force Awakens. And it's like, he really is a rebel now, where he really is fighting for the right thing and fighting against fighting against the First Order. And I thought it was really cool for him to get that moment. But yeah, that stuff is all cool. Anyway, guys, kind of going back to Luke here, I just love how he trains Rey. I love how he tells her about the dark side. I love how we see Luke's own struggles. We get Luke and Leia at the end, which is such a nice moment. I love how he goes and sees C-3PO, and he's like, Master Luke, and he just gives him like a wink. That's awesome. And then for him to obviously sacrifice himself at the end, and Rey says, like, I felt him leave, and she's like, it wasn't anger or anything. She's like, it was peace and purpose. And it's like, it's true. He had a purpose. He saved the Resistance. Rey re-inspired him to like ignite the resistance and be like, oh, it like pass on to a new generation. And so I'm sure we'll get him as a Force ghost. All like really, really good stuff. But I think Mark Hamill just delivers just such an amazing performance as like that seasoned legend. He talks about how he's like, I became a legend, and he's like, you know, I'm just like a story now. And Rey's like, maybe we need a legend. And it's like, it's so cool, dude. I just love all that stuff. And I think Luke was the best one here. Okay, guys, there was no try, which is my least favorite character. It's going to be General Hux here. I thought Hux was pretty cool in Force Awakens. I just thought he was kind of like the backup character here, and I just thought he didn't really do much. I thought he was kind of a joke. I mean, they literally open up the line where they're like, "This is General Hux," and he's like, I'll hold for Hux," and that joke doesn't really hit for me. But it is kind of like they don't respect Hux, and Kylo obviously has a one-up on him, and you know when he fails, he's like, okay, I'll take the call from Snoke in my quarters. And then he goes over and he's like, oh, you know, Supreme Leader Snoke. And Snoke just throws him to the ground with the Force. And he's like being dragged around. And I'm like, that's what you get, dude, because you're just failing. And it's like, why is he in charge? Because we got Kylo, who's strong in the Force. And it's like, he's trying to take over once Snoke dies, and he's like, oh yes, he's like, I will be Supreme Leader. And Kylo Ren is like, bro, I have the Force. He Force chokes him. It's really cool. And I was like, let's go, Adam Driver. All due respect to the actor, as I always say, guys, my least favorite character, guys. But yeah, I just thought he didn't really bring much to the story. And I thought it was weird having two kind of villains where we had Kylo and Hux. And I was like, I could do without Hux, and Kylo literally like throws him to the side of the ship when he's attacking Luke. And I understand that someone needs to keep Kylo in check, but also Adam Driver is such a force acting wise, where I think he could have been the main villain after Snoke died. So Hux didn't really feel like he was doing anything, and I don't think he really contributed to the story. So he gets my least favorite character for this one. Okay, guys, that brings us to the score. This is an 8.8 for me. I will say that the story kind of holds this one back from being a top tier Star Wars movie, where it really is, when you think about it, they jump to hyperspeed. First of all, hyperspeed tracking is sick. Like, that's so cool. And I think Rose says, like, you know, the technology, the idea of hyperspeed tracking has been around forever, but it's new technology. So it's like they had the idea, but now they're finally implementing it. But the fact that the resistance is like, oh, they're evacuating their base, guys. The movie opens with the evacuation of the rebel base. And so it reminds me of Empire, where they're like on the run. And so it's like things are not good for the rebellion. And so they're literally escaping, and they're like, oh, we'll just jump to hyperspace. And then for them to jump to hyperspace and then the Empire, or the First Order, to show up right after, they're like, oh shit, what do we do? Like, we can't just jump to hyperspace. It's going to burn our fuel, and they're just going to be there again. It creates this dilemma where it's like, oh, what do they do? You know, and they don't have Luke, and they don't have like the Jedi Council, and it's like their resistance is in a very different spot. And so they have to kind of figure out what to do or what to escape, and they throw the shields up so that they're not just getting blown to bits. But then they're like, what do we do, dude? If we try to leave, they're just going to shoot at us. So I really like that aspect, but I do think that they spend too much time on it, where it really is just like Finn and Rose go down there, and then when Poe keeps challenging like first Leia and then Holdo, he's like, what's the plan? And she's like, oh, well, we're just going to keep waiting. And then like, he's like, well, dude, we're just going to run out of fuel eventually, and they're going to kill us. Like, what's the plan? And then they're filling up the transports, and Poe is like, dude, those transports have no guns and they're not shielded. He's like, what is the goal here? Like, we're going to get destroyed if we go out there. And they don't know about the transports, but then Benicio del Toro tells them, which is, I think, weird, but it's a good movie, guys. I mean, visually it's really, again, stunning. There's so many just beautiful shots, and I really think some of their performances are great. I think Daisy Ridley is fantastic as Rey. I think Mark Hamill is obviously fantastic as Luke. I do like Leia's performance. I don't know if I mentioned it in the thoughts, guys, but in the scene, I think Carrie Fisher passed away before this movie came out, so everyone was like, oh, okay, how are they going to deal with her death? And then when she gets and I didn't mention this, guys, Kylo Ren is the one that shoots those missiles, where he's coming for that ass. Kylo Ren goes around, he does like the spin thing with Vader, but he's like in control. His ship is really, really cool. It's like a customized TIE fighter, but it's sick. And so Kylo comes in, and he's like hungry for blood, and he's like, look, I just killed my dad. He's like, I'm coming from my mom now. And he shoots the missiles, and it like blows Leia out into space, and it kills like Admiral Akbar. It kills like a whole bunch of huge resistance people. And I feel like they didn't really do it justice as much. I mean, the effects were okay, but Leia gets blown out of space, and you're like, wow. And then you're like, okay, that's how she dies. And then she just uses the Force to like, oh God, it looks so bad, where she like Mary Poppins back in, dude, where she's like clearly just on a line, and she like, you're telling me that she can breathe in space or like survive in space enough to use the Force, but she comes all the way back, guys, and then she like hits the door, and it's like she can't open the door. She can float through space, but she can't open this locked door, and it's just like weird because then she's like basically in a coma for most of the movie, and then she just like busts through the door at the end, but there's like no indication that she recovered, like she just recovered. It's weird. There's not like really a moment. I mean, I think Luke reaches out to her, or Leia reaches out to the Force. I don't know, but the whole Leia scene is so like got to be the worst scene in Star Wars history, dude. It's so horrible, and I don't think anyone can defend that scene. It's even knowing, first of all, Leia isn't super, super, super powerful at the Force. Like Luke is stronger, so it's a whole thing, guys. But yeah, the Resistance is just stuck there, and then really it's like a side mission for Finn and Rose, and so I didn't love that. And then I thought Benicio del Toro's character was a little forced and weird, and the timing was a little convenient. But there are a lot of really cool elements, like the hyperspeed jump, which is just an incredible shot. Obviously, Luke seeing the 2 moons at the end and then dying, and him projecting himself. All of Kylo Ren stuff, all of the Rey and Ben stuff, I think is really, really awesome. Probably my favorite parts, where she like shoots the hole in the village. People are like trying to put it together, like, what the hell? And she's like, oh, my blaster went off. Sorry. And I love how later Rey is training and she uses a lightsaber and slices the rock by accident. It comes down and it hits one of the carts, and the people are like, what the hell, man? I think it's an above average movie. And a lot of the things that I didn't like before, I think hold up a little bit better now, but it is still missing like an overall, it's really like a bridge movie to the third one, where it's like, oh, Resistance is stuck for a while. Oh, guess what? Rey's going to train a little bit. And then guess what? Now, like the war, like Luke says, the war is just beginning. And so that's where it leads up to the trilogy. But yeah, it's a pretty good standalone film, but I can see why people hate it. I don't hate it personally, but there are definitely some things that like bug me about it a little bit. I think I'm more forgiving this time. And so that's kind of the reason I give the score what I did. Okay, guys, so that brings us to the rankings. So once again, guys, number 1, we have Rogue One at a 10 out of 10. Number 2, we have Return of the Jedi, 9.8 out of 10. Number 3, we have A New Hope, 9.6 out of 10. Number 4, we have Empire Strikes Back, a 9.2 out of 10. Number 5, we have Solo, a 9.1 out of 10. And this one's going to slot in at number 6, guys, with an 8.8 at number 6. For The Last Jedi. Number 7 will be The Force Awakens at an 8.6. Number 8 will be Attack of the Clones at an 8.3. Number 9, Revenge of the Sith, 7.5. And then number 10, rounding out, guys, The Phantom Menace with a 7.1. So that's where our rankings stand, guys. I really struggled to rank this film like back and forth. And then I'm going through and I'm looking at these and I'm like, okay, I kind of started around the 4 or 5 and I'm like, is it better than New Hope? No. Okay. Is it better than Empire? And I was like, no. And I'm not really a big fan of Empire, but I still gave it a 9.2. I still think it is a really great movie, even if it's not my personal favorite. But then I was like, Solo was a blast. I was like, I had more fun watching Solo. And then I was like, so it goes right above Force Awakens at number 7, or excuse me, at number 6 for me. And so I think that's kind of a decent spot for it. I can't really put it ahead of, obviously, I just don't think it, like, there's the top tier, Rogue One, the original trilogy, and Solo. I feel like it's 1 through 5, but that's kind of like elite tier. And then this goes kind of below that. But I also thought about putting this lower too, but then we get into stuff like Attack of the Clones. And even though I like Attack of the Clones, I'm like, I don't think Attack of the Clones is a better movie than this movie. And so I kind of think it's kind of right in the middle there. All right, guys. Well, that's another episode of the review you've been looking for. We have just one left, guys. We're going to be doing the Rise of Skywalker next week. So again, I've seen that one the least. I'm excited to rewatch that one. I know that movie is a mess story-wise, but I know it was also a really fun time, and I know visually it was striking. So I can't wait to see that next week, guys. Thanks for checking out the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, guys, may the Force be with you.